There are a wide variety of points to use an investment appraisal essay. So look at net present value, look at the payback period. But if you've got this essay, that's clearly just financial. So you have to have a balanced response. So you would need to have some non-financial factors as well, especially if that's indicated in the question. But I've got to be honest, it's a moot point. You would have to have financial and non-financial to be balanced. Why is that important? Well, if you look at the mark schemes, level 3 is unbalanced. So essentially, if you just have financials, there's a good chance that you might, as a maximum, get 15 out of 25. Whereas once you have a balance, you've got some non-financial and financial, that's what can push you into level 4 and potentially level 5. Now, that could be either way. So if you only had non-financials, you would clearly be capped as well. I think you might be capped a little bit lower if it was just non-financial, because clearly it's an accounting essay, so you should have some numbers in there. So I've popped a couple of factors here. First one is more on the financials, the cost of the investment. We have discussed the cost of investment from the context of net present value and payback period, but not from the context of sources of finance. So if you do the paragraph when you're judging whether you want to choose one option over another, clearly how you're going to raise that money is going to be a massive factor in that choice. So if the business needs to borrow, you may have been told, you may not have been told, then you would need to consider whether, one, could they get a loan of that size? Two, could they raise a deposit? Three, what is their current debt levels like? So we could be questioning gearing as a limitation. If their gearing's too high, that could be a risk they may not be able to get the debt, or it would be more expensive. What's their current interest cover? Can they pay for their finance costs easily at the moment? So all of those could be used as an analysis of one option being preferable because of the ability to raise the money. If the business can raise the money and can cover the finance cost, then cost of investment maybe isn't a major factor, but we don't know that, and so that's something we'd question, and that could be a limitation. If they're using retained profits, then and they've got enough retained profits to cover this investment, then it's not a major factor because there's no interest costs involved. But there's still the opportunity cost of what they could do with that money. Ethics is quite frequently something that is relevant in a paper 2 essay. There's usually one of them where ethical concerns are either inferred or explicitly stated. So it could be one of the options. Before you've had it, they've been a mine, there's been child labour, environmental issues, whatever it might be. Then what you've got to be questioning is the impact on customers if you're choosing an ethical option, the ethical concerns of the owner, how much do they care? And usually you'd be arguing that obviously an ethical option is better, but you shouldn't be going in one direction. The unethical option is usually more profitable. So from a business point of view, if they're not concerned by ethics, they might choose the unethical option. And how much do customers care? That's part of your limitations. You might be saying initially, well, actually, customers may decide to switch to another business. You might lose sales. You might have to lose customer loyalty. But then you question, but that depends on how much customers really care. And it may be the fact that ethics don't factor in purchasing decisions that much at all. So ethics, there'll be something, usually in investment appraisal, you've got to question how much it affects and how much the owners care. Employees, how's this going to affect employees? Is it going to give promotional opportunities? Is it leading to redundancies? Is it exploiting employees in another country? How will this decision affect employees, and then that knock-on impact on motivation, on productivity? Employees could, depending on the context of the investment options, be a decent paragraph to write about, but sometimes doesn't fit. Risk. Now this comes into your conclusion. I'm going to do a slide on that in a moment. But are the owners risk takers or risk averse? So risk takers, they would take on a high risk option with the hope that it will make a larger profit, or are they a little bit more risk averse? They want to have the safer option. So maybe you're not going to be picking the one with the higher net present value. Maybe we're going for a quicker payback period because we just want to be secure. We just want to keep our money. What could be in there? Legal or political issues. So we could be looking at planning permission. Do we have planning permission for this investment? It could be a property, it could be a new build. That will factor in. Are there any health and safety laws? Are there any other legal issues that could impact either the cost or the success of this investment option? If it gets blocked, there's no return on investment. Political, there's so many different political issues. Obviously taxation, Sometimes governments will give tax breaks if you're looking to set up in a particular area. Obviously, tax rates could go up. You're looking at trade barriers. Bring in the wider context. Look at all the tariffs that are being brought in from the USA. We've got quotas. Any additional costs because of political challenges could be a factor when we're looking at investment appraisal, as well as exchange rates and the impact that could have if you're importing and you're exporting. You don't have to have all these points, but all of them are relevant and could help to support your analysis and choice of which option to go with. Once you've got all your paragraphs, you want to have a strong conclusion. And we said this on investor ratios before, but you need to have a clear decision. So when we're looking at this, we're going straight away, which is the best choice? You're going to go with, usually it's project A, project B, or whatever it might be, but your first sentence should be, in conclusion, I feel they should choose project A, or whichever one you want, obviously. Then backing up with the key evidence, you should have some kind of focal point. So do you think profitability is the most important point because they're a business, they want to generate dividends? That's fine. They're a small business, is liquidity more important? So payback period might be the stronger argument here. Risk, what's the attitude to risk of the owners? So which option fits in best here? Long-term viability, is one option better in the longer term? It doesn't really matter, or it could be a combination of these factors, but you need to have clear evidence that supports your choice. Then, what I always think is better is have a bit of a comparison. Why is this better than the other option? So your other option will have strengths, and you can say why these aren't as important. Or there may be some weaknesses in the other option, which is why you're not going to choose them. Make sure you back that up. It helps to strengthen your judgment. Make sure you've got evidence all the way through. You should have some numbers in here. So using the payback period, using net present value, return on investment, anything you might have calculated, but make sure you use them. Then at the end, have some limitations. If I knew this, this would have affected my judgment. So what didn't you know which could affect your choice? So sources of finance. It's a good chance you're not told about sources of finance. How could knowing how they'd raise the money, how would that affect your judgment? Gearing, how could that help you? Competitors, what competitors doing in the same industry, how could that have affected your choice? Are there any other areas they can invest in that can make a larger return? That's a perfectly valid limitation you can bring in. Customer opinions. Don't repeat things you've said before. So if you've already referenced this, don't do it again. But customer opinions are valid. How would they feel about you choosing one option over another? Risk as well. What is the attitude to risk of the owners? If you know that, how can that influence your judgment? But make sure you don't just say, oh, a limitation is this. It's not about that. It's about questioning why it's a limitation, how it affects your judgment, and that gives you the higher marks. Thank you.